Thank you very much, Rabbi Zmira. As Rabbi Zmira said, we are friends. We used to be neighbors in Yad Binyamin, and then without asking us, they moved to Mitzpe Yericho. I don't recall giving the go-ahead. So Rav Eli and Rabbi Zmira moved to Mitzpe Yericho. It was a great gain for Mitzpe Yericho and a big loss for Yad Binyamin. But we still work together a little bit with Rav Eli and a little bit with Zmira as well. So it's a zchut to be with you and to share some words and yishar koach to the OU in general, OUisrael in particular, OU Women's Forum, I'm not sure what it's called, but all the amazing work that you're doing. I know my mother's a very, very big fan of Rabbi Zmira. Has she been in touch with you, my mom? I'm sure she has, yeah. She's normally a big fan of rabbis, but it sounds like she's a big fan of Rebbitzins as well now. And so it's wonderful to be with you. You know, I think for me this last year, it's really been for me Avodat Hashem from a place of pain, ongoing pain. Many people, and I'm sure unfortunately people in the room here as well, have been through loss, going through loss, still dealing with it. At some point in our lives, unfortunately, we all, it's part of the reality of life, is dealing with loss. And although as a rabbi, I had dealt a lot with this with family members, but also with community members in South Africa. Thankfully had until October 7th, other than grandparents who had passed away, I was very close to, hadn't really dealt with something so close to home. Thankfully, my parents are alive. I'd lost an uncle about 11 years ago who suffered from a multi-system atrophy, which was a very painful process to see, but dealt with by his wife and family with incredible inspiration and strength and resilience. Had many in our community in South Africa, quite a number of children had passed away in tragic circumstances. Of close friends that dealt with that, but nothing quite prepares you for waking up one day and having one son missing in action, another son injured. Just by the grace of God, Jonathan was shot through the thigh and thankfully only lightly to moderately wounded. In Nachal Oz, 120 yards from where his brother, unbeknown to him and us at the time, had been killed and taken captive. We only heard after 163 days that unfortunately Daniel had been murdered, had been killed on October 7th in Simchat Torah. So having to deal with this was so difficult. Obviously, loss in and of itself is such a challenging thing. But then additionally to have to go through the first 2 weeks of your son being missing. I remember when the army came to tell us he's missing. I said, what do you mean he's missing? What do you mean in the 21st century you're coming to tell me that in his army base or outside his army base, in a place where there may be more cameras almost than anywhere, you don't know what happened to him? I still struggle until today with this. I suppose people who've had somebody close to them passing away suddenly, it's the same thing. How's a person one day here and one moment not? Just the suddenness of it is just, I suppose everything in life has got its ups and downs, its pluses, pros and cons. People who unfortunately suffer and go through a protracted death, on the one hand it's protracted and difficult and suffering. On the other hand, one gets a chance often to say goodbye. One, not that anything prepares you for it, but you have the person with you for a while, and often goodbyes can be said. So there's a certain benefit within the pain and tragedy. Here we didn't have the pain and suffering in terms of Daniel, but we had this sort of suddenness. And I think anyone who goes through that suddenness, it's just so difficult. How is it hayom kan umachar b'kever? It's just so difficult. And to add to that, the fact that we don't know where Daniel is. So for 2 weeks, you don't know where he is. Then you were told that they think he's been taken captive, karov levadai, a hostage. They found phone signals in Gaza of his phone, etc. 3 weeks later, hostage. Another 2 weeks after that, after 5 weeks, the blood that they found on the uniform and in the tank is his blood, so now we know he was injured, so now he's an injured hostage, which is very difficult. I always felt that if Daniel got through the first day, he would be okay, but I don't know if he got through the first day. It was very, very, very difficult that day when they told us that he'd been injured. Turns out that it was actually a silver lining, because even though we really suffered even more until we heard, but the fact that we have a uniform and we have blood means we were able to bury something. We have a place to go at Har Herzl. It's called a Tzion Kever. We've got a grave. A lot of people don't have a grave. And it's hard even for me to imagine what it's like not to have a grave. So yes, his body is not in the grave. Unfortunately, please God, it will come home soon with all the others. Bezrat Hashem, those who need to come home for burial, around 40, and Lavdil Ben Chaim L'chaim, they should come back to be with their families alive. But at least we've got a grave. We've got a place to go to. Many people don't yet have that, and please God, they'll have it soon. So then you're dealing with this reality of disappeared. I remember the word that they used was nutak kesher. You know, we don't have a kesher. And the truth is, it's 452 days. It's nutak kesher, just disappeared. And even though we have thankfully a grave, he's not in the grave. We don't know where his body is. Probably somewhere in Gaza City. As you're aware, I'm sure, that Israel, since the those six were killed, executed by Hamas, Israel's very, very careful now not to go into any areas where they know they're hostages, that it shouldn't happen again. And this has given Hamas obviously an upper hand in all of these areas because of the hostages. It's a very, very, very difficult situation. So we had to deal with that. Then after 163 days, the terrible news that he had passed away, Shiva. They then allowed us, with the confirmation and the authorization of the Chief of Staff, to listen to the black box of the tank. We were able to listen to the 2 hours and 16 minutes of the tank battle. I often say it was such a profound, poignant 2 hours and 16 minutes. On the one hand, you're listening to the last 2 hours and 16 minutes of your son's life. You know how it's going to end. It's a tragedy. On the other hand, you're listening to the last 2 hours and 16 minutes of your son's life. What a schut. What a schut that you can hear 2 hours and 16 minutes, the decisions they made, the amount of people they protected, how they fought with Masirat Nefesh, how Masru et Nafsham al Kedushat Hashem va'aretz, the TORAH, to the last minute trying to save Jews without any care or concern for themselves. They left their tank position, that they were in a safe tank position at 9:45, having fought for 2 hours against the first wave. When the second wave came in, they saw 50 to 60 terrorists coming in on motorcycles with RPG launchers. They chose to leave the safety of their tank position, knowing that they were the last line of defense, and they had to do anything and everything to try and prevent further killing. You hear in Daniel's voice for the soldiers without hesitation. He says, we're leaving the position, we've got to go, and we're going to have to stop every one of them. Because even if they shot with their cannon, how many will they kill? 10, 15, 20? The vast majority would get in, and everyone was a killing machine. And hence that's what they did. He had to open the top of his tank in order to put his head out to hold the machine gun. And after a battle for many, many minutes, maybe 10 minutes, close combat, eventually, unfortunately, the tank was overrun, and 3 of them were taken captive. Tomer Leibovitz was found dead in the tank. He was entangled in the tank. They couldn't get him out. So thankfully his parents were able to have a body and a burial on the 17th of October. Daniel, Itai Chen, and Matan Angres were taken captive. On day 156, Itai's parents, Chagit and Rabbi, were informed that he had been killed on October 7th. And a week later, we were informed about Daniel. And we hope and pray that Matan Angres, the driver of the tank who was taken alive, has been seen by hostages who were let out. There is evidence of him being alive. Up till recently, please God, he's alive and well. Now you've got to deal with this. So this whole 15 months has been dealing with pain, angst, concern, worry, loss, things not quite closed. So obviously, all extreme situations test a person. And for me, like all of us, we try and serve Hashem in all situations we put in. For me, this year has been Avodat Hashem from a broken heart, from a pained heart, one which will, I don't believe, ever heal. But the one thing I've realized, and again, I don't want to be presumptuous, we're not 2, 5, 10, 20 years into this, we're 15 months, and all I can do is day by day, is to feel that somehow one is able to live with a broken heart. And I often reflect on the words of the Kotzker Rebbe. Some say it might be the Baal Shem Tov, but I think it was the Kotzker who famously said, Ein yoter shalem milev shavur. There's nothing more complete than a broken heart. As I've been through this, I'll be honest with you, I don't fully identify with this. There's nothing complete about a broken heart. A broken heart is broken. It's broken. It's always going to be broken. Daniel will forever be missing from our family. Forever. In this world. Until Tchiat HaMetim. Until Olam HaNeshamot. It's a very, very, very painful reality. What can possibly be complete about that? Yes, so much good has come out of it. So much chesed from Hashem. But the heart is still broken. And for me, what I've realized this year is that you can live with two hearts. I'm articulating maybe what the Baal Shem Tov, the Kotzker, is saying in my experience and personal interpretation. It's not that the broken heart is complete, the broken heart is broken. But that's not the only reality. We also have a complete heart. And some of you may have seen, I tried to put a booklet together for the Yamim Noraim on trying to articulate, I called it Days of Awe in Times of War. It rhymes better in South African English. Days of awe in times of war, as opposed to days of awe in times of war. So, but anyway, I went with the South African rhyming thing. And in this booklet, I tried to articulate through the themes of the Yamim Noraim and Sukkot and Simcha what we were going through. Because I think we were all struggling for the first year of the Yamim Noraim and Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret. How do we best experience it? And I think for me, the most profound experience, which I'll speak in a moment, how this affected my Teffila, is that I felt I have two hearts. I have a broken heart, where there's nothing complete about it. It's broken. But that's not the only heart I have. It's not the only experience in life. I also have a complete heart. Firstly, complete in that on that day, Rahman al-Litzlan 1,000 times over, we could have lost 2 sons, as has happened in other families, Rahman al-Litzlan. Many examples, unfortunately. Not only did we not lose Jonathan, he was saved miraculously. And he was only, in inverted commas, shot in the thigh. And the bullet didn't hit his artery, which God forbid could have led to death, or his bone. He was still able to get married 10 days later, albeit a much smaller wedding. He's married, he's well, he's pretty much 100% recovered. And so even on the day, there was so much blessing. Yes, there was so much pain, angst, and brokenness, but also blessing. And one thing I realized, the one doesn't cancel out the other one. One can't say, well, so terrible things happen on that day, and then ignore the fact that so many good things happen on that day. And in our family, you don't have to look far. For me, this was the tipping point, the moment where my paradigm shifted. Having been in 48 hours, the first 48 hours I was in South Africa we call it a dwal. I don't know what to call it in American English, just in this like bashok, as we say in Hebrew, in shock. The well-known Hebrew word, bashok. So just didn't know what was going on. Had no idea what was going on. You're living in a reality with one son missing, and another son in hospital shot through the thala. And the time that I was able to begin to lift my head out of the bore was when I contemplated, based on a few things that had happened that day, that I'm actually very lucky that Jonathan's alive. And the somehow, I don't know how it happened, but the ability to say, wow, I'm actually grateful that Jonathan's alive, and it doesn't undermine, invalidate, or cancel what's going on with Daniel, was the first moment for me of, hang on, these things go together. If you would have told me that it's possible to have a son's wedding 10 days after your son has missing and probably taken captive and be genuinely happy, I would have said, no, maybe that's a story for the Gedolim, the Gedolim. You read about the Gedolim, and you've heard stories about the Gedolim that one of the Gedolim, I've heard many stories like this, got told in the beginning of Shabbos that a close family member had passed away. And somehow they keep it at bay in the whole of Shabbos, celebrate Shabbat, and the moment they make Havdalah, burst out crying and break down. And that's for Gedolim. So it almost seems a little bit inhuman. And if you would have told me that it's possible for us average people, for me, an average person, to be able to go through a wedding, my wife and I and family, and to be genuinely happy that the heart can contain that while you've got a son in all likelihood held in Gaza, and God knows what's going on with him, I would have said it's not really possible. But the amazing thing is in life is that human experience is stronger than philosophy. It's stronger than opinionating. At the end of the day, as it says in the Gemara often, Puk chazay ma'am adavar. Instead of debating it, just go and see the reality. What are people doing? And somehow, I don't know how to explain it. My wife had this sort of epiphany that they must get married and we'll be okay. And it was such a difficult build-up to it because I was very, very scared that I wouldn't be able to genuinely feel the happiness. I wrote in the booklet that the way I developed my coping mechanism was not to think about Daniel. I said, Daniel, forgive me. From 4 o'clock to 12 o'clock or 11, I'm not going to think about you. I can't. Because if I'm going to think about Daniel during the chuppah and the wedding, I just won't be able to. So I tried very hard in my own mind to block out Daniel from my consciousness. That was my defense mechanism. But it didn't work. It didn't work because firstly, my wife, we went into Daniel's room. She wanted to go into his room and feel his suit. Daniel was our stylist in the family, another lovely Hebrew word. Stylist, a person who dresses with style, right? And he bought this beautiful suit and beautiful shoes. And she wanted to go and feel his suit. That's the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I couldn't think of anything worse that I wanted to do. I mean, I can't think of anything worse, but that was not what I wanted to be doing. And it was very painful to go into his room just before the chuppah and come out. And I said to my wife, Shelley, I said, Shell, let's now focus on what we have. We've got Jonathan. Let's just focus on Jonathan. That was all part of my defense mechanism. So we agreed. And at the chuppah, as I've shared, we come to the chuppah and it's all holding it together. And the rabbi who's marrying them, the rabbi of our community of Hillel Merzbach, starts the chuppah by saying, how can we begin this chuppah without talking about the one who's not here? And I'm like looking at him thinking, what is he doing? And then he starts mentioning Daniel and he starts crying himself. So we all start crying and talking about Daniel, and then we davened for Daniel. Of course, we all broke down. It was a very, very painful few minutes. But then I realized an incredible thing happened. Of course, he did the right thing. There's the elephant in the room. Can you really not talk about Daniel as if nothing? But I didn't know how to do that. So in my mind, I just blocked him out because I didn't know how else. I couldn't bring Daniel under the chuppah with me because then there wouldn't be a chuppah. So I thought. So the Rabbi with his EQ I just wasn't thinking clearly. The Rabbi did the right thing, and he mentioned Daniel, and we prayed for Daniel, and we cried for Daniel. But then the amazing thing happened. We stopped, we wiped our faces clean, and we continued with the wedding. And yes, when we finished the chuppah, which was amazing, we had some family pictures which are very painful. Until now, every family pictures are very, very painful. The other day we had our son Jonathan, his wife Galia, and our 2 daughters in a picture on Hanukkah. The first time we've had a picture of the 5 of us without Daniel. It's such a painful, it was so painful, especially for my wife, just to say, she said, Doron, that's the first picture we've had of the immediate close family without Daniel, or just the 5 of us, the 7 of us. So, 6 of us. Very, very painful. So, but it passed, and then we danced, and it was unbelievable. And I've often shared that one of our close friends said, after the chuppah, she said, a friend of ours from Yad Binyamin, Tammy Goldberg, she said, Doron, this is, I think she captured it brilliantly. She said, this is the holiest, saddest, happiest, most inspiring wedding she's ever been at. And for me, it was the happiest wedding I'd ever been at, tinged with some of the most painful moments in my life. But even the fact that I'm able to say that, to reflect that as an experience, is something I wouldn't have thought is possible. And through this pain, when I reflect back on it, I realize an unbelievable thing. It is possible in the human heart to contain totally contradictory feelings that one would think that in the flow of life, of the nefesh all being connected, that how can you have such pain and angst and worry with such trepidation, with such appreciation and blessing? I don't know, but I know it's possible. And that's what I felt this whole year. In such a raw, hollow pain, we went to see last night a family. In my son's diary, we didn't know that he had a diary. But the diary came back from Nachalos, and in this diary, he writes a few things. I just want to get to the Teffila part, so I won't go into too much detail about the diary. But in the diary, one of the things he writes about the thing he reflects on every night before he goes to sleep. And he writes 5 things. One of the things he writes about is the name of a soldier, Bar Falach, Major Bar Falach. Then he has an arrow, and a whole long quote of half a page of Major Bar Falach. Who is Bar Falach? Bar Falach fell September 2.5 years ago, 2 and a bit years ago, in Yudav Shomron, in the Shomron, at a border incident on the fence. And what became famous about Bar is he made a very powerful speech on the Yom HaZikaron before he fell at a tikkun, talking about what it means to be an Israeli soldier. He died during Daniel's officer's course. Turns out that Daniel was incredibly moved by Bar on so many different levels. And he wrote this whole quote out, he knew it off by heart. It's a quote about what it means to be part of the IDF, what it means to be standing in Har Herzl amongst your brothers. Not when they lower the flag in Yom HaZikaron, you don't lower your head, but you raise your head with pride. You stare straight at it, feeling the privilege and the pain of being part of, your brothers who've given their lives for the Jewish people. Al-Kedushat Hashem Am Ba'aretz. And Bar became a role model for Daniel, and he'd never met him, and had a tremendous impact on him. So because last year I've been wanting to go and see Bar's mother and family, just to share with them. And just because of the traveling, and eventually we went last night, an hour and 50 minutes from Yad Binyamin in the rain to Netanya, my wife and I. We had a very, very special few hours with Bar's mother, Dalia, and 3 of his siblings. And it was very, very special. You become part of this group of people, and just to obviously took pictures of the diary, and we brought it with them, and how their son, unknowingly to them and to him, has impacted our son. One of the family members was very, very close to her brother, was just saying, she said, Doron, it's 2.5 years, and it still feels like when he passed away. She just said, it's the heart is broken and probably will forever be. But it's not the only human experience there is. And for me, as I said, the biggest learning is this. Now, how does this translate into Tefillah? I want to share with you something that we've all read in the Shema and just give my own interpretation of it. We say in the Shema, as you all know, Va'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavacha u'v'chol nafshecha v'chol mo'adecha. What does Rashi say on b'chol levavacha, quoting the Mishnah in Masechet Brachot? B'chol levavacha b'shnei yitzarech, with your two hearts. Oh, you've got two hearts? I thought we only had one heart when I last checked. Some animals more than one heart. You've only got one tiny little heart. Doesn't matter how big you are as a human being or how small you are, one little heart, size of our fist. Works very, very hard. Very, very hard, this tiny little muscle pumping blood everywhere, cleaning out the body. And dawn on me, hang on. Firstly, what does it mean, b'chol levavacha? If it's not clear with your Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. But I'm not going to go into that. There's a debate what that means. But what is clear is that we have two hearts. And says the Torah, how does the Gemara, the Mishnah, learn that? Because it doesn't say b'chol libcha, it says b'chol levavacha, meaning levav, leiv, bet. We all have two hearts. It could have said b'chol libcha. It says b'chol levavacha. Seems we've got two hearts. Oh, now for me that means a complete heart and a broken heart. Not that your broken heart is complete. Your broken heart is broken. But you've also got a complete heart. And you know what? The heart's got space for both. There's lots of chambers in the heart. And perhaps to serve Hashem with all of your heart, to love Hashem with all of your heart, means to bring all of you. To bring the broken sides of you, where you come and you connect to God through pain, through tzorech. We know that the middle 12 or 13 brachot are called bakashot. All the incomplete things in our life. There's so many things incomplete. Who's got total wisdom and total tshuva and connection to God and total health and total parnasah? No, who's got that? No one has it. So we are inherently lacking. We're inherently missing. We're inherently yearning. And we're yearning for this. And 3 times a day we say to Hashem, we just want to be more complete because in a certain way we're fractured and broken. But there's so many elements of our life are complete. We started with Shevach, the first 3, the Avot. We're part of such a rich history. The shoulders of giants. We're not alone in the world. We live in a world of Magen Avot, that Hashem protects us. Magen Avraham. We live in a world of Tchiat HaMeitim, of hope. Machai Meitim, Rofei Cholim, Matir Asurim. No matter sick and imprisoned, and we live in a world of hope. Gvurot, that Hashem does gvurot. Be'amim ha'im b'zman hazeh. Ugvuratam lo yasuf mizaram. V'giborim b'yad me'atim, b'yad v'chulay. Gvura. Gvurot. Machaya meitim. Everything can turn around. Every bit of death, darkness and destruction has catharsis, redemption and salvation. That's what we start with. And how do we end? Hodaya. Yes, we have 12 or 13 bakashot of how lacking we are, how broken we are, how needy we are. But then we've got so much to be appreciative for. How do you move in one moment from Shomei Tefila, right? Shema Koleinu, Hashem Elokeinu, all the things that we want, all the bakashot that are missing in our life. And he says, here, Avarachaman in the Sfardi or Sfarad, Shema Koleinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, all the things that are missing, have mercy on it, how much mercy we need. And then all of a sudden, Modim anachnu lach, hatov shimcha lecha. How did you do that? What happened? How in the middle of Hallel, are you thanking God and thanking God, all of a sudden, Ana Hashem Oshiana. Hang on. You're just thanking God and save us, save us. Because all of Tefillah is somehow a mixture, because all of life is a mixture between the foundations, appreciation, and mission. The pain of brokenness and the complete wholeness of appreciation. That's the experience of the Amidah. That's the experience of davening. And of course, you'll all be familiar with where is it written in the Torah that we have to daven. Where's Tefillah written in the Torah? So it's in the Midrash, the Rambam brings it. Ulo ovdo b'chol levavachem. It says in the Torah a number of times that we have to serve Hashem with all our heart. It says the Rambam in Ilchot Teffila, Peretz Aleph, Seif Aleph. He says a person is obligated to daven every day. Where do we see it? From the Torah. And he says, Ulo ovdo b'chol levavachem. Because the Chazal say that serving God all out. Ezi avodah shebalev. What is the service of God in your heart? Tefillah. That's why intent is so important in davening, because the essence of the mitzvah, says Rav Soloveitchik in Ala Tshuva, that there's certain mitzvot that you have to distinguish between the maaseh mitzvah and the kiyum mitzvah. What's the action and what's the actual mitzvah, the kiyum? So the action is, following the words of Doron, saying that. What's the kiyum? What's the actual mitzvah? That you're connected, that you're serving God with your heart, that you intend what you say, that you know what you're saying, you're connected. But this really made me think that what is tefillah? What does God want in tefillah? Rahman al-Libaba, He wants your heart. So bring your heart. Bring your heart. And what part of your heart you bring? B'chol levavcha. Broken and complete. The better sides, Yetzer Tov, and the more challenging sides, Yetzer Hara. And then it made me understand something else that we say every day in davening. We say in the Birkot Kriyat Shema, every day in davening, in Ava Rabbah, Avat Olam, we say, just before the Shema, V'ha'er einenu b'toratecha. God, enlighten our eyes through your Torah. V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, right? And let our heart, single, libeinu, not levaveinu. V'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha. Let our heart cleave to you in service of God. And then what's the next one? V'yached levaveinu la'ava l'yirah shmecha. And unite our heart. Well, what? You just said v'dabek libeinu leiv. Now all of a sudden you say yached levaveinu. Unite my heart. Why does my heart need unity? So you can simply explain what does it mean. Well, just make sure you are fully involved. But it didn't have to say v'yached levaveinu, like unite our heart, dedicate our heart. And how does it continue? La'ahava u'lira'at shmecha. Now we get an insight what it is. How do you hold in your heart love and fear at the same time? These couldn't be two more different emotions or sentiments. Love is a result of closeness, of intimacy, of wanting to be one. Fear, awe, is standing aside. And even if it's the highest level of what's called yirat kavod or yirat rumamut, but you're at a distance. God is not imminent if we're close to Him. If we're close to Him, yes, but He's transient, He's far away. He's third person. Anyone we have awe for, fear and awe for, are distant from us. There's no chommy-chommies with a king. Right? The whole thing is distance. Distance, as we say in the army, another wonderful Hebrew word. Right? In the army, it's well known that, especially in the beginning, between the soldier and officer, in the beginning, there is distance, which means keep your, we're not friends. You're going to have to follow what I say, because when push comes to shove, when you need to follow exactly what I say under fire, you're going to have to do it automatically. So how do you have distance and closeness? How do you have fear and awe and love all of that? They couldn't be more different. Welcome to the world of human life. We live with one set of dichotomies. And therefore we're all over the place. We're scattered. We don't know how to v'yached levaveinu la'ava l'yirah shmecha. And why are we saying v'yached? Because what are we preparing for? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The only way to serve God in oneness, the one God, is to unite your heart, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol ma'odecha. What does the Talmud, actually the Mishnah, famously say on the word b'chol ma'odecha? Often say, what does God want from us? Love God with all your heart. Okay, we'll try give all parts of our birth. Okay, that's not enough. With all of your soul, even if you have to give up your life, it says in the Gemara. Okay, what more can you give to God? How much more can you love God than with all your heart and even giving up your life? Like, what more can you ask? So there's a lovely expression. So then it's b'chol ma'odecha. Now, what does that mean? Does anyone know in English what that means? With all of your ma'od. What is that in the pshat? As a Chazal say, b'chol mamoncha, with all the money. Another interpretation, B'chol midah, with every midah that God, but that's not what the pasuk says. I mean, that's chazal, that's drash. What's the pshat? It's a lovely expression I think Americans use, I haven't heard it in others. You say you must give it all and then some. You know the expression, yeah? But you've given it all. What do you mean and then some? No, you've never given it all. You've never given it all. Give everything you've got and more. That's the truth. What is everything you've got? You can always give more. Ask any top athlete. I remember reading a book when I was young. We come from a sporting family. There was a person who was the person who developed sports management with all the top sportsmen. His name is Mark McCormack. McCormack Industries. He professionalized sport and said to the sportsman, I'll manage your business affairs, you just do your thing. And he had a book, I remember on my father's shelf, called The 110% Solution. That's the name of the book. He said, I've never met a sportsman or woman in any sphere who didn't succeed without giving, not 100%. When you step on the field, that's entry level. If you don't give 110%, not 100%. I mean, that's obvious. Another word in Hebrew, the obvious. Okay? It's another cool word. Just say, the obvious. Okay? It's obvious. Okay? Israelis love using, especially in like the highfalutin, throwing in these English words. There's another one Israelis love in the army. Say, long story short, I'll teach you lots of Hebrew by then. You've learned like 10 new Hebrew words. But there's another one they love to say. Shema, it's a mindset, shelcha, mindset. Another one. How do you say mindset in Hebrew? Mindset. So at the end of the day, you've got to give it everything. I think b'chol mordcha means and then some. Just give it everything. All your heart, all your soul, and everything. Ma'od, and everything, and even more. Chazal say b'chol midah midah. Shakadosh Baruch Hu modeh lecha. And listen to this, and I'll end with this. One thing I struggled with this year is a halacha which appears in the same Mishnah in Masechet Brachot Daf Nun Daled about the Shema, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. And I'm sure you're familiar with this halacha, and I really struggled with it, and I'll end with this. Chayav Adam levarech al hara'a kishem shemevarech al tova. The Mishnah says a person has to make a blessing on the bad in the way that like you do on the good. And I learned this for the first time. I said, what does that mean? Firstly, why must I make a bracha on the bad? Why must I make a bracha on the bad? Where's that written? I mean, it's written here. But why do I need to do that? And what does it mean I have to make a bracha on the bad like I do on the good? What does that mean? Now, the same Mishnah says, you must make a bracha on the bad, called Baruch Atah Dayan Ha'emet, and on the good, Hatov HaMeitiv, or Shechian Hatov HaMeitiv. So one second, the bracha is different. So I don't make a bracha on the bad like I do on the good. On the bracha on the bad, I say, God, Dayan Ha'emet, you're the true judge. And on the bad, I say, on the good, I say, Hatov HaMeitiv. So what does it mean? A person is obligated to make a bracha on the good in the way that you do on the bad. Kishem Shabbat. What does it mean? And then the Gemara says something I found very, very difficult. It says, lekablinhu besimcha. To accept it with happiness. I said, hang on, light. Is God asking me to accept the bad besimcha? Come on. How am I supposed to do that? Again, the Gedolim maybe. That's a story of the Aderet, Rav Kook's father-in-law, that when his son passed away, they were waiting for him for the funeral, and eventually they went to find him, and he was waiting before Kriya. He says, I can't do Kriya unless I can say it with the same level of simcha that I did on the day that he was born. Okay, the Aderet can do that, I can't do that. How can average Jew do that? What is this? Is the Torah distant from human experience? What does that mean? I didn't know how to understand it. I just couldn't identify with it. And even if we know that everything Hashem does is for the good, yeah, that's in Olam Haba. By the way, the Gemara says in Masechet Pesachim Daf Nun, the Gemara there says something we end off the davening with every day. Bayom Hahu in Aleinu, Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. In the future, God's going to be one. The Gemara says there, in the future, in the Olam Haba, we will understand the difference between good and bad. I'm going to end now, between good and bad. And in the future, there will be no difference between Hatov HaMeitiv and Dayan Ha'emet, because we'll understand it all, but we don't live there. Bayom Hahu will all be one. In this world, it's not one. On tragedies, Dayan Ha'emet. There's a broken heart and pain, and the other ones are talking about, how do you come and say L'kablinu b'simcha? And then Rashi started helping me. Rashi said L'kablinu b'simcha. Rashi says, B'leivav shalem. Oh, now we're getting somewhere for me. He didn't say b'simcha, he says b'leivav shalem. What does it mean again? Leivav shalem, with a complete heart. Or to accept the bad things with a complete heart, the way that you accept the good things b'simcha with a complete heart. Oh, that I can do, I feel. I believe I can say with an absolute, complete, broken heart, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, day and amen. God, you know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. I might never know. But I don't run the world. You run the world. I live in your world. And therefore, I feel I can bring my whole broken heart to you and say, and I can even make a bracha. Because I'm not thanking you. God's not heartless. Or thank you for taking your son. No, thank you. But I can bless you. I can bless you. I can say, God, we live in your world. Great is the name of God. You know what you're doing. You're a true judge, even if I don't understand it. And then I'll end and say, I saw that the Bach, Beit Hadash, says exactly what I just said now. He says, there's no ways that God can ask a human being to thank for the good with simcha the way on the bad. And this is how he interprets it, and I'll end with this. He says, the meaning of the Gemara is a person is to make a bracha on the good, bad, the way that they're on the good. It means like this. It has to mean, says the Bach, means like this, that a person has to accept the bad as bad with a full heart, complete heart, the way that a person accepts the happy times b'simcha. Because the complete heart in happy times is happiness, and the complete heart in the challenging times is a complete heart of accepting the world we live in, but it's not the same feeling. And therefore, Bayom Ahu, and that day we can all come to Hashem and say, God's name will be one, it will all be one. In this world, we have a complete heart and a broken heart. The broken one is broken, the complete one is complete. But what's the chidush for me? We can serve Hashem with both. And to come to Tefila, v'yached levavenu, l'avayah shmecha, to bring them together, and to come to the Amidah with an absolute, complete, and full heart of the privilege of being a Jew, and then at the end, the appreciation for all the good in our lives, and in the middle, so much pain, tears, and brokenness. And they go together. I don't know how, but they do. And that, I think, is the miracle of human life. It's living with dichotomies, living with contrasts. Ava and Yira is one contrast, body and soul is another one. Thankfulness and neediness is another one. And we can go on and on and on and on. Life is one big concoction of dichotomies. That's the essence of human life. The animal and the human together, the animal and the angelic together. And this whole concoction of all contradictions, all contained in the human heart, in the human experience, in the human soul, and Yizrat Hashem, we've got to dig deep and bring ourselves wholeheartedly to God. Wholeheartedly. With pain and a broken heart of expressing our needs and distance and desire to be close, and all the things that we're appreciative for. I don't know how it goes together, but it does. And Bezrat Hashem, we should all only have a whole and complete heart. Thank you very much.